The topic of discussion is developmental disturbances of teeth. So before discussing the developmental disturbances, let's discuss normalcy in tooth development. In normal odontogenesis, that is both morphological stages and physiological stages, they are under influence of both genetic as well as environmental factors. So whenever this normal odontogenesis occurs, it results in the formation of a healthy tooth like this. But if any disturbance occurs in this normal odontogenesis, that is in both genetic as well as environmental factors, it results in anomalies of the teeth. So these disturbances, they are so many that they are broadly divided into 4 groups. So based on the disturbances related to size of the teeth, number of the teeth, shape of the teeth, and structure of the teeth. So what is the classification given under these developmental disturbances of teeth? So under size of the teeth we have microdontia and macrodontia, and under number of teeth, anodontia, supernumerary teeth, predeciduous dentition, post-permanent dentition. And under developmental disturbance of shape of teeth, gemination, fusion, concrescence, dilaceration, Taylor's cusp, dens in dent, dens invaginatus, enamel pearl, and taurodontism. Whereas under structure of teeth, it is amelogenesis imperfecta, dentinogenesis imperfecta, dentin dysplasia, and regional odontodysplasia. So firstly, we will discuss about developmental disturbances in size of the teeth, which involves both microdontia and macrodontia. So first one is microdontia. This is the term which is used to describe teeth which are smaller than normal. So under this microdontia we have 3 types, that is true generalized microdontia, relative generalized microdontia, and microdontia of single tooth or isolated microdontia. So what is true generalized microdontia? So it is where teeth are physically smaller than usual. So the normal microdontia itself, like it is seen in this picture. So this condition is seen in various situations like Down syndrome, pituitary dwarfism, etc. So here the size of the teeth are smaller than normal. So what is relative generalized microdontia? Here the size of the tooth will be normal only, but they are present in relatively larger sized jaws. That is, patient will have macrognathia. That is why the term relative is used. So next one is microdontia involving single tooth or isolated microdontia. So usually this is the commonest of the 3, and the most common tooth affected are maxillary lateral incisors and the third molar. And the commonest of the situation is peg laterals. So these peg laterals are the ones, they instead of exhibiting parallel or diverging mesial distal surfaces, they usually converge or taper together incisally. So this is a picture of peg laterals wherein you can see that cone shaped crown. So this is about microdontia. Next, moving on to macrodontia. So it is exactly the opposite of microdontia. It is also called as megalodontia or megadontia. So what does this mean? Here the teeth will be larger than normal. So here also we have 3 types, that is true generalized macrodontia, relative generalized macrodontia, and macrodontia of single tooth. So under true generalized macrodontia we have all the teeth which are larger than normal, and this is seen in situations like pituitary gigantism, otodental syndrome, XYY males, and in situations like pineal hyperplasia with hyperinsulinism. Whereas relative generalized macrodontia, here the size of the tooth will be normal only, but they are present in relatively smaller sized jaws, that is micrognathia. And next, moving on to macrodontia of single tooth, wherein it is a very uncommon situation. Here the tooth will be appearing normal except for its size. So next, moving on to the next disturbances, next category itself, that is developmental disturbances seen in shape of the tooth. So there are many conditions which are under this shape of the teeth. The first one among this is gemination. This gemination, it is an attempt of a single tooth bud to divide. So a single tooth bud will divide into two, resulting in double teeth. So here is a picture of a normal teeth where it is a single crown and a single root which is formed from a single tooth gem. Whereas whenever the single tooth bud it divides into two, then it forms a bifid crown like this. So a single tooth bud has divided into two. So what is this gemination basically? It is an attempt of single tooth bud to divide with the resultant formation of a tooth with a bifid crown, and usually having a common root and a root canal. As you can see in this radiograph, you have a bifid crown with a common root and a root canal. So where all it will occur, it affects both primary as well as permanent dentitions, and most commonly seen in the anterior maxillary regions. So this is a clinical picture of gemination wherein the both central incisors are affected with gemination. That is, instead of two central incisors, there you can see it looks like as if four teeth are there because a single tooth bud has divided into two. So this is about gemination. Next, moving on to fusion. So fusion is where there is union of two normally separated tooth buds, resulting in a joined tooth with confluence of dentin. As you can see in this second picture, where two normally separated tooth buds are there, but they are joined together with the confluence of dentin. So it is basically union of two normally separated tooth germs. So depending upon the stage of development of the tooth at the time of union, this fusion may be either complete or it can be incomplete. But what is that factor which causes this fusion basically? What causes fusion? So it is any physical force or any pressure which produces the contact of the developing teeth, resulting in their subsequent fusion. So if this pressure occurs before calcification, then the two teeth may be completely united to form a single large tooth. But if it is occurring after calcification, then there may be union of only roots. So this is a clinical picture of a fusion. If you see the mandibular arch, where on the left side as well as on the right side, there is a fusion of lateral incisors with the canines, resulting in double teeth again. The next condition is concrescence. Concrescence, it is also a form of fusion, but it occurs after root formation is completed. So here the fusion is on the root surfaces with the help of cementum. So concrescence is two fully formed teeth joined along the root surfaces by a cementum. As you can see in the radiograph, where the root surfaces are fused with the help of cementum. But how does this concrescence occurs? It arises as a result of a traumatic injury or crowding of teeth with resorption of the interdental bone, so that the two roots they come into approximate contact with each other and become fused by the deposition of cementum between them. So that results in concrescence. Next one is dilaceration. So dilaceration basically it is an angulation or sharp bend or curve in the root. So you can see in this radiograph here where the tooth is showing an angulation or a sharp bend in the root structure. So what causes this dilaceration? So here if any injury or any damage or intrusion to the overlying predecessor, that is deciduous teeth, it results in vertically directed force through the deciduous teeth to the underlying permanent teeth. As you can see those red arrows, they are giving that vertically directed force to the permanent teeth, which is resulting in the progressive alteration in the direction of the growth of permanent teeth. So it can result in either bend in the crown or in the root. So this is a clinical picture wherein the molar is showing a bend in the root. So next condition is Talen's cusp. So it is basically an additional cusp that is located on the lingual surface of the anterior tooth. So this additional cusp, it extends at least half a distance from CEJ to the incisal edge. So here it is a clinical picture of a talus cusp on the lingual surface of the central incisor, where it is from CEJ till the incisal edge. So here this talus cusp, it is thought to represent the end of continuum that extends from a normal cingulum to an enlarged cingulum to a small accessory cusp and finally to a fully formed talus cusp. So here is a radiograph now of a talus cusp on the mandibular central incisor, which is present on the lingual side. So this talus cusp is seen in conditions like Rubinstein-Tabby syndrome, Morse syndrome, Ellis-Van Creveld syndrome, incontinentia pigmenti acromions, Bernoulli-Seips syndrome and Sturge-Weber angiomatosis. So this is about talus cusp. So next, moving on to dens invaginatus. So dens invaginatus is a condition where it is a cusp-like elevation of enamel located in the central groove or the lingual ridge of the buccal cusp of premolar or molar teeth. Here is a clinical picture showing a dens invaginatus or a cusp-like elevation on the central groove of a mandibular second premolar. So this dens invaginatus, it has various other names like central tubercle, tuberculated cusp, accessory tubercle, occlusal pearl, invaginated odentum, Lyon premolar or tuberculated premolar. So what is the pathophysiology behind dens invaginatus? So during the Bell stage of tooth formation, there will be an abnormal proliferation and folding of inner enamel epithelium along with the dental papilla cells into the stellate reticulum of enamel organ. So this abnormal proliferation, it results in the cusp-like elevation which is seen on tooth surfaces. Next condition after dens invaginatus is opposite one, dens invaginatus, which is also called as dens indent. Here there will be a deep surface invagination of the crown or root. So this is a picture or a radiographic image of a lateral incisor showing dens invaginatus. So usually this dens invaginatus, it can occur because of any localized external pressure or it can be because of any focal growth stimulation in certain areas of the tooth bud. So basically there will be a depth of invagination which varies from a slight enlargement of the cingulum pit to a deep infolding that extends to the apex. So depending upon this depth of invagination, Oler has given a classification. That is, it is divided into 3 types where the third one has 2 subtypes. So type 1, where the depth of invagination is seen extending till the cingulum and the yellow area is the enamel. So always the dens indent is covered by enamel. And type 2, where the depth of invagination, it has crossed beyond the CEJ and ended up in a blind sac. Whereas in type 3A, the depth of invagination, it has opened on the lateral radicular area. Whereas in type 3B, where the depth of invagination, it has extended till the lateral to the apical foramen itself, and the whole length of the invagination, it is covered by enamel surface. So after dens invaginatus, it is enamel pearl. It is also called as enameloma. So it refers to the presence of enamel in ectopic locations, basically mainly on the root surfaces. So these enamel pearls are yellowish white spherical or globular structures which are seen adherent to the furcation areas, as you can see in this picture. So what is the basic origin? So it occurs because of any localized activity of Hertwig's epithelial root sheath that remain adherent to the root surface. Hertwig's epithelial root sheath is nothing but combination of inner enamel epithelium and outer enamel epithelial cells. So these cells later it can differentiate into functional ameloblasts. So basically what is the function of ameloblasts? They deposit enamel matrix. So here they deposit enamel matrix on the root surface, because Hertwig's epithelial root sheath gives rise to root. So the most commonly it is seen on enamel pearl is seen on maxillary molars, commonly third molar. This situation is mostly asymptomatic, but sometimes it can result in localized periodontal destruction in molars. So if you see this radiographic picture here, it shows an radio opaque enamel pearl at the furcation area of maxillary third molar. So this is about enamel pearl. The next and last condition is the taurodontism, which is also called as bull-like teeth. Taurodontism is basically an enlargement of the body and pulp chamber of a multi-rooted tooth with apical displacement of pulpal floor and bifurcation of roots. So if you see, this is a normal tooth wherein there is a proper pulp chamber and proper bifurcation. Whereas if you see a taurodontism tooth here, there is an apical displacement of the pulpal floor. So pulpal floor has enlarged and there is apical displacement in the bifurcation of the roots also. So depending upon the length of this bifurcation as well as displacement of the pulpal floor, there are three types given, wherein the mild situation is called hypotaurodont, and moderate situation is called mesotaurodont, and severe situation is called hypertaurodont. So this is a classification of taurodontism. But what causes taurodontism? It can be a specialized or retrograde character, or it can be a primitive pattern, or it can be a Mendelian recessive trait, or it can be an atavistic character, or it is a mutation resulting from odontoblastic deficiency during dentinogenesis of the roots. So all these can be the possible causes for the development of taurodontism. So what are all the various clinical features seen in taurodontism? So basically both deciduous as well as permanent dentitions can be affected, and molars are the commonest tooth which are affected among all the teeth, and it can be unilateral or bilaterally seen, and it is associated with a condition like Klinefelter syndrome. And you can see more detailedly, that is the clinical features, where the involved teeth, here the involved teeth tend to be rectangular in shape like this picture. So the tooth is rectangular in shape, and the pulp chamber will be extremely large with greater apico-occlusal height than normal. As you can see in this radiograph, the pulp chamber is extremely large and also has an apico-occlusal height. And pulp also lacks normal cervical constriction too. So these are the various features of taurodontism, and this marks the end of developmental disturbances affecting size of the teeth as well as shape of the teeth. And the other developmental disturbances which are affecting the number of the teeth as well as the structure of teeth will be dealt in another video.